What's up, everybody? So today we're gonna have a bit of a off-ish sort of day because I don't actually have a whole lot to talk about, to be honest with you. It feels weird, but I've really been really happy with the last couple episodes of The Flash, Arrow, Supergirl. I mean, the last one was a little weak. But honestly, I don't have a whole lot that I want to sort of offer a fiery opinion on, and that's kind of weird for me. I mean, normally I have opinions out the ass about different things, but given that I don't really have a whole lot to say right now about a lot of things, I decided to take this time to really kind of talk about nostalgia of all things, because for me, nostalgia is huge. And you have a lot of people saying, oh, I remember this, or I remember that, I remember other third things about their childhood or their past or things that they really, really enjoyed. Now, obviously, there's the typical sort of YouTube crowd that says the 90s, or just people in general that are heavily affiliated with the 90s kids, which is sort of like the generation that grew up with the internet and sort of was the genesis of the internet and trolls and basically the progenitors of internet culture. And I myself am one of those. I'm not necessarily a progenitor per se, but I am definitely one of the early consumers. Now that said, it's interesting to kind of go back and look at a lot of the things that have gone on, especially in my life as a YouTuber, and specifically understand where I've actually come from. Because back when I first started doing YouTube, not even on this channel, on a separate channel, oh god, 4 years before? 4 or 5, oh man. It's probably like almost 6 years beforehand. Like very much in the beginning days, I used to do YouTube videos about, of all things, parkour, and now I'm talking about philosophy and psychology. And so the nostalgia wave for me is crazy. There's all kinds of different things, and actually Matt Pat did a great video talking about the breakdown of different, I guess the word is like eras of YouTube. He talked about the progenitors, the people who started it, people who came on really, really early, the sort of golden age or Wild West sort of era of YouTube, where you had people like Rayloom Johnson, Nigahiga, and post Fred, because holy shit, Fred was an emblem of a different time entirely. And now you've kind of got a very almost like jaded sort of attitude of older creators who have been on here for 10 plus years doing this. And you've got creators who are basically progenitors like Smosh. They have completely shifted their dynamic. They're completely different people now from what they used to be. And so a part of that is actually just how people mature and change over time. But there's actually a theory, an idea that the person that you were 20 years ago is someone that you are nothing like now. And you can even see this 10 years apart or 5 years apart or even less, because you've got examples like Philip DeFranco, where 5-10 years ago when he first started, and when he was kind of getting into the flow of YouTube and putting it as a real full-time job, he was actually very much dealing with his own maturation as a person, and you can see the drastic shift, first of all, in the content and the way that he grabs people's attention, to the way that he presents himself now. The shift in behavior is incredible to watch and be able to actually document, and it's almost like a case study in the way that we look back at things. For example, Phil, in his particular subjective lens, he looks back at those times of him being old as incredibly cringy and uncomfortable. And myself, when I look back at some of my older videos, I have a weird sort of split opinion, because I feel like I was more genuinely, I guess, more pure about the art form. I used to go out and shoot things all the time and create my own narratives. I even went to Whistler at one point for a video that just happened to tie in with something else I was doing, so I used it as a jumping off point for a vlog that is honestly one of my favorite videos to date, and it's not even on this channel. So, some interesting sort of thoughts for me going back is feeling like I was very much all about learning about the platform and learning about the way things work, and now it feels so much more mature, and the way that things work now is very different. And so kind of viewing that is really interesting, to be able to actually visually see maturation on YouTube, because it's been visually documented and audibly documented and seen in a visual medium. It's really interesting. And then of course you have the typical idea of nostalgia, which is essentially going back to those old cartoons or old TV shows that you used to love as a kid, going back to them and seeing if they really kind of stick up to the test of time. And a lot of that has to do, going back to nostalgia, this idea of nostalgia glasses, this altered perception of how good something was when you were younger, because your perception, and maybe whether it was a result of being the target audience, your impression of the show is vastly different. You might think that something is way worse than you originally thought it was, and that might have just been due to the fact that it was catered to a certain audience, or it might have had something to do with the fact that some things just don't age well in a world where we're dealing with essentially partial dive technology, which, by the way, partial and full dive is different degrees of virtual reality, and some futurists actually think that when we're looking back 10 years from now into now and seeing essentially the genesis of VR to what is supposed to be the time where we get our full dive sort of technology built in, which is actually, interestingly enough, really accurate to the timeline that SAO and Log Horizon and similar shows, anime, that deal with that concept actually peg the timeline to be, which is really interesting. It's mostly unrelated, but it's kind of a neat note to be able to see, hey, you know, SAO might have been absolute ass trash, but in some aspects it was very accurate to a reality. Obviously not in the gameplay mechanics and the behavior of people within a game, which SAO Abridged really beautifully tackles. For another video on that, there's one right there that you can check out in the card, and also obviously down below in the description. But the interesting thing for me is being able to see the evolution of things. You kind of get this feeling that, as I said, things are better than you thought, or worse, or something in between. A great example for me is I grew up watching Kim Possible and Danny Phantom, two shows that I loved as a kid, and going back to it as an older adult, I realized that it's actually still stands up to the test of time. And a lot of that has to do with a lot of the writing, the way the characters are written. The animation is flowy enough that it's actually able to stand the test of time, which for a lot of animation styles is not necessarily the case. Another good example of animation style that really tests the time barrier and stays with it is Justice League Unlimited, and shows that have a similar sort of art style to that, where it feels more realistic. Well, obviously that's not as common. It does visually stand out. The only real issue is resolution more than anything, and that is something that can be re-rendered. So what is my point here? What is my thesis, my idea? My idea is to revisit something. Ironically, I have actually done a video on nostalgia before in the past, which I thought was kind of funny, so I should rehash the topic a little bit. I rehashed my Supergirl video last week, and now I am rehashing the video that I'm doing today, which is nostalgia. So with that said, guys, it's crazy to think, first of all, that I've been on here, on this platform, for about a year now. This is my year anniversary video as well, because it just literally in the middle of this video, it clicked on me. I've been doing this since October 31st area, or November 1st of last year. I've been on YouTube for a year, and we are at 732 subscribers right now, which is crazy. But with that in mind, maybe let's take a look at some of the old stuff that I used to put on this channel, and as a special little extra added bonus, we'll even look at some of the stuff pre this channel, because fuck it, why not? So first thing I'm going to talk about is some of my really early stuff. I had a bit of a flair for the theatrical. I did a sort of trailer video for a Master versus Apprentice style kind of Assassin's Creed inspired video about doing parkour. And at the time I was nowhere near as proficient as I am now at the actual craft. It's interesting to see what I thought was cool back then, and knowing as a subjective audience member now, being so far removed from that person who was doing the video, I look like a fucking idiot for one thing. But the theatrical elements that I put in the trailer, I think, conveyed a feeling that made it way more epic looking than it ended up actually being. Now, with that said, obviously we've got a lot of other stuff to go through, but one of the things I wanted to talk quickly about was my little Whistler vlog that I did when I was way younger. I went out to see a cousin of mine who was out in BC and just kind of enjoyed that style. My stuff was very similar actually to what Neistat's style is now, which is interesting. I mean, it's not nearly as cinematic as his was, because again, I was really just starting out. I didn't have a solid idea of framework. I had just been doing a lot of photography classes in high school, so my idea of what was a good shot and what wasn't was not quite as matured as it is now. But the beautiful thing was I just shot because I could. I took tons of footage. I shot gratuitous amounts. I hadn't a huge sort of storyline in mind, but I was able to actually cut around it in such a way that it conveyed a sense of story. And that is something that I have been really sort of searching for the last year and a bit now, because I've been trying to get that feeling back into me. And when I first started on this YouTube channel, one of the things that I really tried to convey was actually ability to create a narrative. And one of the ways that I did that was actually through these AMVs, or anime music videos, that I used to do. I was a big fan of Ruby and of, actually I only did the one of Ruby, which has like 11k views now, which is cool. But I did the one of Ruby, specifically of Yang, because she's actually my favorite character, and I love the very punchy physical dynamic of her fight style, and just her in general as a cool person. So I thought to demonstrate that, I would do a video styled in the song of Apache Sway, I Am a Dragon, or I'm a Dragon, or whatever. So that was that video, but there was also stuff for Arrow and Flash and at the time Legends of Tomorrow. I didn't do a whole lot of Legends because Legends is very campy, and trying to make the sort of narrative flow would feel difficult, at least from my perspective it would be. So I did a lot more of Flash and Arrow stuff back in the day, and now kind of seeing, I mean, those got popular, but they were not something I could really sustain. But that said, if we get to 1,000 subscribers in the next little bit, maybe that is something I will do for a 1,000 subscriber sort of milestone video, is I'll go back to my old style stuff, and I'll do an AMV, a vlog, and of course I'll go back to a Reflections. And honestly, I would love to put more effort in, but I feel like I don't have a whole lot of time to really deal with these and edit them, so unfortunately it's a little more difficult than I would like it to be. But anyway guys, this is me talking Splice Night for a long time, 15 minutes plus right now in the recording. I don't know if it'll be that long in the video, obviously, but anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys. I realize I've been basically rambling for a while, but I'm dealing with a lot of emotions and things. So anyway, my point is, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and it's nice to hear all the comments and people talking, and even if you're shit talking my video, or me, or whatever or whatever it happens to be that we're talking about, it is so awesome to actually see your comments down below and being able to interact and talk with you guys, because I still love doing that. We're still small enough that I can do that effectively. without being essentially lost in the just flow of comments and completely destroying my notification feed. But anyway, thanks so much for watching, guys. My name's Splice Knight, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.